Live recording of Should I Start a Podcast. It's really good to have you here, whether you're watching it live or you're watching the recording. I'd love for you to use the chat and let me know how you're consuming this. This is going live across all the platforms: LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. It's kind of crazy. So YouTube. So wherever you're watching and consuming this, let me know how you're consuming it, whether you're doing it live or the recording. And if you want an edited version of this recording and this podcast, go to shouldiStartAPodcast.com or find Should I Start a Podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms. Today I have a treat. We've got two people in the house who have actually changed my productivity and my creativity over the last month and a bit with their products. I mean, it's absolutely insane. I can't believe this stuff is legal. I have been consuming it for over a month and a half. I have spares just in case I run out. I've been talking about it a lot. I had a party at my house a couple of days ago, and I've kind of given a little bit of that to my friends that came over, and they just loved it. It was absolutely insane. It's called Nutopia. It's a great company. And I love to talk about how this all came about with the legends that are on a lot of podcasts, because they advertise a lot on other podcasts, so you would have heard of them. But I have Mark and Matt in the house. How are you, legends? What's going on?
Great. Great to
Awesome.
be here.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to have you. Thank you so much for doing this. Let's start with this, right? When you have an idea like this, which is like amazing, how do you tack on the business side to things to make it a viable place to play in? Because while Mr. Newts would be amazing at like doing all the formula stuff, it still has to go out to people to actually make it a thing. How does that all come together? And when I ask that question, what is the first story that pops in your head?
Well, hold on. So first you find a mat. First find a mat, and then everything else comes after that, right?
Yeah, I bet. So you're both obviously very different in the skills that you bring to the table. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the different skills that you bring together, and how do you sort of what do the responsibilities look like?
Yeah, so let me share my secret formula. And again, I'm an entrepreneur. I built 14 profitable companies last 25 years. And Mark is also a very accomplished entrepreneur. I think he's got me beat. I think he's up to 18. My secret formula, since I've started, has been to find people that are brilliant at what they do, but they tend to not be as good at business, or they suck at business, and then basically create all the marketing and all the logistical elements that they need to succeed. And I think Mark falls in that bucket. Mark had a business live, and it was making sales, but I think that we saw a great opportunity to work together, and we could multiply the level of success they were at, which we've done. And I think it's been a great win-win. And I can't overemphasize the number of people that are brilliant at whatever their skills are, or have created an incredible product, but absolutely have no business skills, is the majority. And for everybody that can create a podcast, launch marketing successfully, profitably, the opportunities are just endless. And I've done that countless times with in the fitness space and the guitar space. I had one of the biggest instructional guitar companies in the world. And that's all we did. We just used to find professional musicians, guys that toured with Jerry Garcia and all kinds of legends, but had no business abilities. And we would film them, record them, package the products, and sell it. And it was a great win-win. So that's the whole secret sauce there.
That's a really interesting question. So let's dive into that for a second, because I was actually going to cover mistake number 56, which is I compile a list of mistakes that podcasters make, and number 56 is having no method to sell, which is like one of the things that I think you're talking about is like there are these artists that are amazing at what they do, but they don't want to sell, or they don't know how to sell, and it's like they're selling their soul. And then there's the other part of the other side of that is where the business owner is just like, I'm not going to do that if there's no ROI and they have no art side of things. Like, how have you seen this sort of, how do you approach people that are really good, and what is the first steps to business there?
Matt, can I jump in here on this one?
Yeah, of course.
So when Matt and I met, he said, "Hey, you want to sell your company?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Great." He said, "That's what I want. I want somebody to partner with for the next, 50 years and go change the world." But really importantly, after he had gone through his research of just like diving deep into our product line and figuring it out, we did a podcast. Now, I'd done one podcast in 2013 or 2012 by one of our in fact, the guy that introduced Matt and I together on Facebook, on kind of an open box on Facebook. Brad Costanzo is his name, great guy. And so we fast forward to November, just before Thanksgiving here in the States. And Matt said, "Hey, Mark, we're going to do a podcast. We've packaged up the product. We found 9 of them that we really like the way that they work kind of in concert together. And we're going to do a podcast." Now, I hadn't ever seen a podcast done as a revenue thing outside of course, Joe Rogan or some of the big ones, Tim Ferriss, Tom Bilyeu. And so it was kind of really? This is how we're going to launch this thing? So Matt, Wade, and I, Wade, the other partner in Bioptimizers, we did this podcast. It was a couple hours live, and it was streamed on Facebook. And when we were done, I got this excited call from Matt, and he said something to the equivalent of, "We only lost 20%." In other words, we did the podcast, and it was 20% below or 21% below break even, and based on the number of transactions that occurred during that 2 hours or 2.5 hours, whatever it was. And I thought, "Oh shit, it's over. We're gonna fold the whole thing." And that was fun and it was interesting, but it's not a business. And Matt goes, No, you don't understand. I know metrics. I know if we would have had a 20%, like if we would have lost 80%, I can fix that. Only losing 21%, I know how to throttle that, man. And he did. And he did. In fact, the next month it was profitable next month, and he built on it. But it was that understanding the dynamics and metrics of whatever you're doing so intently, so accurately, that being able to twist the throttle slightly, do a very incremental pivot, and understanding what the outcome of that will be. That's what Matt really, really rocked. It was the communication. It was what words we used. It was the sentence structure. It was what the actual, the selling opportunity was for people, what the outcome would be for them. We've continued to migrate that over the last 2 years as well. And we've gotten better and better at resonating with what our customer wants and giving them that thing plus. So.
Well, let's get into the actual product, because I've, I think, done a really bad job of explaining what it actually is. But I believe your tagline, "No bad days." I've not had a bad day. It is absolutely crazy. I love what you do and love what you put into these little pills and these little solutions that I try not to use them all up straight, because I'm like, oh, I have only 2 power solutions left. I gotta ration it. Let's talk about the actual product and what it does, and so that people listening can understand how to not have any bad days.
Can I give Mark the setup? So let me give Mr. Newt's his proper setup.
Yeah.
Bit of background. So first of all, I've been formulating for 16 years. Mr. Newt's giving little previews there. Been formulating products for 16 years. Optimizers is, you could call it the mother company, the predecessor. And we're always looking to build best-in-class products. I was working on nootropics for many years. I was experimenting with nootropics and planning on creating our own line. And then, as Mark mentioned, a mutual friend of ours said, "There's nothing better than Mark's formulas." I hit Brad up. I said, "Can you do an intro?" He did an intro. I bought about $3,000 worth of Mark's formulas. And I tried them for months. I played around, I combined them, I took notes, and then I realized this is it. This is the ultimate. I can't beat this. I'm not going to do a better job. So let's partner up and let's put this together in a more cohesive way in a system. And what we've done is we've launched the first personalized, customized brain enhancing system. It's 9 different formulas. We had actually 2 more, but when you first order, get 9 different formulas, and each formula has a very specific purpose. Again, Mark has been working on these formulas for years and years and perfecting them. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it on to you, Mr. Newts. Go ahead.
Why, thank you, Matt. That's great. So, Ronzi, what can I answer for you that will help you best understand? Like, what you've been trying them now, you've been playing with them.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And exploring like the performance attributes and those
Yep.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
So, do you know the genesis of this at all?
No, I'd love to hear how you put it all together. I feel like you're the Sheldon Cooper of the world, building a laser at like 10. Yeah, that's crazy. So I don't know whether anyone's ever called you that, but how did you come across this, and how did you create the products? Let's start there.
Well, so it started because my wife. This was my wife with my eldest daughter.
Yeah.
And during the last birth, the birth of this child. Hey, I got the birth of. Let me see here. Hold on.
Yeah.
That one right there, who
Uh-huh.
actually works for us today. Her name is Livy.
Yeah.
On a couch in front of the fireplace, the midwife gave her 4 oxycodone because she tore, and she absolutely found her drug-addled muse, and a decade later committed suicide on that. And it was it was an absolute devastating experience to see your wife lying prone on the master bedroom floor, and the emergency technician has a 6-inch needle he wants to put through her heart to restart it because she'd been dead for God knows how long. So that was a real wake-up call to me that I needed to immerse myself in a solution to that big problem.
Yeah.
I'd had a family member that was a drug addict as well, and I had some close friends that had also had problems with alcohol and drugs, and I could have been that guy as well. I mean, I certainly knew I could clear a 6-foot bong when I was in 6th grade, and so there was a lot of opportunity for me to have gone down the wrong path. I thank God that I made it on the other side of that, and never found that kind of addiction. I've always been addicted to entrepreneurship. So,
aren't we all? Aren't we all? I love that. So let's break down the products, right? Because I think that would be extremely useful. I mean, I love Nectar X. I love the Apex, and yeah, it's just absolutely phenomenal. How about you break down like what they kind of do? So for someone who is looking at, when I met Matt, and Matt told me about, hey, this, if you think of what your performance level is, this is just gonna like beat it, and you'll never go down, you'll never have a bad day. And I was like, what is this guy on? Like, what is he on? And whatever he's on, I want 2 of those. So let's let's talk about what it actually does and who it is actually for.
So one of the big things is it is a state change engine. So and state change meaning like you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. What if instead you could make the outcome that you wanted? Like, what if you could create the level of either happiness or engagement or focus or throughput, right? Number of actions you can accomplish a day. What if you could do that? And that was kind of like the thing is, we built solutions that addressed very specific problems that our customers came to us with. They said, I'm depressed, but I don't want to be on some kind of antidepressant. Is there any natural way for me to raise my baseline kind of like emotional level from not feeling happy to feeling, at least above neutral or maybe even optimistic. And if you've ever been depressed before or ever had a bad day, you know that you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Yeah. It's not just the fact that you don't necessarily feel awesome. It's that you're also kind of not convinced that good stuff is going to happen. And so, which is a really bad state to be in, because then you amplify anything that's not what you think it should be. That becomes amplified and becomes more of a negative drag on you.
Yeah.
So what we did is we said, what if we could create solutions that could program every one of your emotional and physiological and neurological states and get you predictability in that. So that's kind of what our stuff does. So we starting with NectarX. NectarX was actually the first product that we made.
Got it.
And the reason that it was a test tube full of, at the time, crappy tasting powder, now good tasting powder, or good tasting drink, I should say.
Yeah.
Is I couldn't fit everything necessary to make you feel that good in a capsule. I tried and tried and tried. And so that's what it became.
Yeah.
But just as importantly, there was a couple factors I was looking for. One is I wanted to feel optimistic on it. I wanted something that would kind of imbue you with natural optimism.
Yeah.
I wanted something that would make life fun, so that when you're doing even dull, repetitive tasks, you still are enjoying the process, or you're finding something interesting in that process, so your engagement is higher.
Yeah.
I wanted it to increase my acetylcholine flow, acetylcholine being the neurotransmitter that is functional for thinking and memory. I wanted to have enough dopamine that I not only felt motivated to do stuff, but I felt the reward from accomplishing that. So this was kind of the formula I was building, and I realized that like have you ever seen those graphic equalizers on a stereo? They've
Yep.
got you got bass, mid, treble, right?
Yep.
Well, if you think about those as neurotransmitters, what you're trying to do is you're going to try to find the right frequency, the right levels of each of those neurotransmitters that's going to get you the perfect balance, so that the notes that you're looking for, right? That power chord, Eddie Van Halen, right? Jumping off, right? You want that to happen. You can program that and you can get that.
Yeah.
And so that was the goal of NectarX, and that's kind of what we accomplished. But one of the factors wasn't just putting a bunch of interesting, valuable neurotransmitter precursors in a tube. It was going, who are you, Ronsley? What's your weight? What's your height? What's your workout routine or your training routine? When do you wake up in the morning? When do you go to bed at night? All of those factors in between. How much coffee do you drink? What's your favorite stimulant? What's your favorite way of chilling out? Right? What's your favorite whiskey? Whatever it is, we wanted to find those factors, including what meds you might be on or what vitamins you would like or you use. And then we take that and we run it through our engine and go, aha, this person needs this amount of this amount of this other nutrient, this amount of this other extract, this amount of this really cool precursor, right, to a certain neurochemical. And that combination is going to predictably give them this performance rise that they're looking for. So that's kind of how we do it. And we do it for every one of the things that we make.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, I have to say that using it and experimenting with these are just the best part of my day. So you mentioned earlier how you can change your state, and before Newtopia came into my life, the best thing that I found that would change my state in the morning was a cold shower. So I've been doing that for like a few years now. And now which is what I do now, is like I tack on a cold shower and then the nootropics, and it's like, ooh, what a difference and what a change, right? And I have gotten more done in the last month than in the whole year. I'm not even exaggerating that. I'm not sure whether I gotta give all the credit to your beautiful drugs or whether it is just the state that I'm in, but it's just I can feel the productivity go through the roof. What kind of results that you've seen for your people since you've started this? Like, what kind of stuff Yeah, yeah.
Yep,
It,
yep.
Say cold shower, I say Huberman.
yeah, yeah. It is cold. The cold plunge and the cold shower is just a game changer. I'm so glad I came across it. What kind of results have you seen? What are the case studies that just stand out that you think about when someone asks you, like, what kind of results does this thing get?
I'll share my testimonial. So again, I met Mark during COVID, and actually during that time, Panama had the hardest lockdown in the world. I live in Panama in Central America.
Hmm.
We had 4 hours of freedom a week, and it was, I was working hard, and what I was noticing is around 2, 3 p.m. I could work an extra couple of hours, but it was hard. It was kind of that grinding feeling, kind of the opposite of what Mark was talking about. It wasn't fun. It wasn't positive. It wasn't pleasant. And obviously, productivity takes a nosedive. I started playing with Mark's products and Mark's formulas, and I could just go as long as I wanted to. Like something like Apex, if I wanted to work 10, 12 hours a day, no problem. And then what I started noticing, and I was already working on this before, back to the high performance states thing. One of the best tools for that, and is one of our friends, Ronsley, is Todd Herman's Alter Ego book.
Hmm.
And what I was working on was you're really architecting a variety of high performance states. And of course, there's a lot of mental processes we can do to accomplish that. Like one of them was like focus savagery, which became one of the names of the products. And that was something I wanted to be in when I was trying to max out my intensity, trying to write as fast as possible, trying to create sales letters, blog posts, write a book. And I wanted to get into kind of almost like a jet fighter, hyper focused state to max out the throughput.
Hmm.
Now, when I started playing with Mark's formulas, again, back to the dials, every state, and again, we want a variety of states because depending on the situation, you want to be able to be the best state for that situation.
Yeah.
You can affect your neurochemicals and be able to dial in whether it's a calm but alert state, an aggressive, intense state, somewhere in the middle. There's all these different vibes, states that you can get in that will completely change your performance, completely change your social skills. So for me, one of the big ones is I'm slightly naturally introverted. I can take a stack and become extroverted. I can go to an event, talk to everybody, enjoy the conversation, and that's a life-changing experience. Whereas before, it was more challenging. I felt sometimes it was more draining. So now it's amazing. I can again just go from introverted to extroverted. I can go from calm to intense. I can go from intense to calm. Again, I feel like I've got total control over my
Yeah.
mind and my state.
Yeah. And I just want to say that I totally agree with you. I just had, like I mentioned earlier, I had this cocktail party at my place, and I'm introverted as well. And I took a brain flow and an upbeat, and holy shit, right? What a difference. And I think that I've been using it for these different events, right? We bought these VIP tickets to see Chris Rock, and I took brain flow before going, and it was like, what an experience. And I feel like I literally, even though I've been using it for a while, I literally look at the ingredients all the time, going, is this shit legal? Like, is this really, like, am I okay to travel travel with this stuff? Can I recommend this stuff? And I genuinely cannot believe the kind of impact that it's having on me. And I feel like there are people who don't know about it, and there are people who do know about it but not sure how to take the next step, and whether, yeah, it's absolutely phenomenal. I just met a friend of ours, Matt, who traveled to Australia, Chris, and he was like, "Oh, I haven't tried the box." I'm like, "Why?" He's like, "I'm not sure where to start." I'm like, "Just start anywhere, dude. Like, just put something in your mouth and try it and see how you feel." What do you see is the biggest obstacle to people using this?
So
Yeah,
that's so great. And by the way, Ronsley, one of the things that Matt and I have is kind of a informal exercise when we're at events. Like this next week, we'll be at Dave Asprey's biohacking event. And when we're there, this is the kind of thing we do. We go, here, take this. And there's two kinds of biohackers. There's one kind that takes it and says, hey, what was that and what will it do? And then there's the other kind that backs away slowly and says, what's in this? Where's the COA, Certificate of Authenticity? Where's the research studies? And then they go home and they decide whether they want to take it or not. We come from the former group. One is we have high trust in people that they're looking out for are good. Can be good or not so good, depending on where you're at. But more importantly, we're looking for that edge that is going to make the difference between what would be either low performance or mediocrity and super performance or superhuman levels of performance. And we think it's worth the risk. But with that said, our stuff is as close to the plant as possible. We believe in a thing called seed to supplement, where we try to get as close to the farm and to the soil and all the way through to the extraction process and how the product comes out. And as the company progresses, which we are progressing really quickly, we're getting closer and closer to that, where we will eventually own every aspect, or at least have some kind of ownership in every aspect of that phase of the business of the raw product. So they are safe. They're every one of the ingredients has been clinically proven to be both effective and non-dangerous. Do no harm is still even though we're a nutritional supplement company, do no harm still lives way at the top. In fact, we do a thing that's really kind of cool that I shared earlier on a different interview, which was one of the things we do is every Monday we have our whole company get together on Zoom, which is quite a few people, and everybody shares their successes, their challenges. We do a little bit of the numbers, so we sound a little bit like a stock market, but then we basically, for 1 minute, starting with an intention, and our global intention is to be able to biologically optimize or help biologically optimize every soul on earth. Everybody that wants to be biologically optimized, we want to provide the resources for that. So it's kind of a global group meditation that we do. And we all close our eyes for a minute. We meditate on that. We focus on it. We make it our intention. And then Matt and Wade and Andy, the management team, we all have our kind of collective goals that are also specifically for what we're looking for. Matt mentioned earlier the geniuses, finding the geniuses and then cultivating their genius and then helping to get rid of the stuff that they suck at so that they can focus on the things that they rock at. And that's the game changer. If there was anything, Matt and his team are genius at communicating, converting that into digital marketing, branding, all of those aspects, communication, all those aspects that are critical to helping the individual understand the value of a product so that it actually makes sense. And they're willing to open up their pocketbook for it. But the real secret sauce is they're able to take people like me and say, hey, I noticed that you aren't really great at your digital marketing stuff. Do you mind if we take that over? And then, hey, I noticed that your organizational skills suck. Do you mind if we get you an assistant? And hey, it looks like this piece of equipment would make a 3x, would improve your productivity 3x. And is there something that you need that you're not, that you maybe don't, haven't taken advantage of because you either don't have the resources or you don't, you can't get into it. And here, let's try that. Let's see if we can make that happen. Not every one of them is a big hit out of the park, but most of them improve you more than incrementally to the point where you're performing at a level that you've never performed before, with less effort, with more joy, more throughput, better outcomes, and every human aspect, confidence, self-esteem, pride in your work, ability to connect, all of those things are amplified by having that platform to work from.
Yeah. I can totally attest to all those things that you just said. Let's talk about the business side of things. Like you mentioned, you have this great product. You're on the top 500 lists and growing companies. Are you surprised that has happened so quickly? And what are the steps that you took to get there? Like, if you had to give us the Cliff Notes version of taking this amazing product, because people do have amazing, like, you could be the best chef on the planet, the best lawyer on the planet, but if people don't know about you, right, it's quite useless. So how did you take those steps to become such a fast growing company with all the success in 2 years, if that?
Yeah, Inc.
Go ahead, Matt.
5000 is usually like a 3-year window. But I'm from the world of direct response marketing. And for everybody listening, both entrepreneurs, I would say start learning about direct response. My foundational skill, which I started learning about 25 years ago, was copywriting. Copywriting is one of the most valuable skills anybody can ever learn, because even right now as I'm speaking copy, right? You watch a video or produce a podcast. It's all words, it's copy. So learning the art and science of persuasion is the key. Now, let's go to the true essence of persuasion, the one secret, the number one thing. It's you need to figure out how to give people what they want. Now, I know that sounds super simple and basic, but it's not. And it starts by really focusing on a group of people. And for example, your podcast is a great example. You're focusing on teaching entrepreneurs how to launch and create podcasts. Very focused, very targeted. Then you got to figure out what's their problems, what do they want, and it's all about creating value. I think if there's one obsession that every entrepreneur needs, is be obsessed with creating more value. Every company that outcompetes other companies do so fundamentally because they've created more value than their competitors, and they've communicated that value. That's really what marketing is. So, I mean, again, I'm speaking more on the broad concepts and principle level. We can get into the strategies and tactics, but that's the essence. And I'm still focused on that. I'm still obsessed with that. We got 15 people, 15 scientists, biologists, and chemists working in a lab in Bosnia doing hundreds of experiments a year to make our products better. I'm not satisfied. So as great as they are, we're going to make them better, and then we're going to make them better, and then we're going to make them better. That's just in my DNA. So that's the secret sauce.
So let's break that down, because you spoke about how communicating that value is so important, giving people what they want, and a lot of the times, as entrepreneurs, we kind of don't meet people where they're at, right? We don't meet people. We tell them, hey, I know what you want, and here's what you want, and that's probably not what they want, because they're in a different state, and we've already gone past that point. How can we break that down and kind of go, hey, let's meet you where you're at and communicate the value that you want to hear at this point for what you're trying to achieve?
That's what great salespeople do. I mean, that's the advantage that a salesperson has. And my first business was a painting company. I did over 200 estimates. We'd knock on doors in the middle of February in Canada in minus 30 Celsius weather, asking people, hi, sir, would you like a free estimate to paint your house next summer? And go in and do some sales pitches. And, when you're going face to face and you get to read their body language and you're trying to figure out as fast as possible who they are, how their brain works, what's important to them, what's not, you don't lose those skills. Now, with a website or with copy, you're in a massive disadvantage because you don't know who's going to show up. There's a variety of people with different needs. But one of the best tactics is get on the phone with your customers, go to live events with Guitar Control. When we started calling our customers and talking to them, we taught people wanted to be shredders and play these wicked guitar solos. We were wrong. What people wanted the majority of our customers wanted was to play their favorite songs. They were lawyers, doctors, they were professionals in their 40s and 50s that had the time and energy to start playing guitar. And that's all they wanted to do. They wanted to grab an acoustic guitar and play Bob Seger and CCR, whatever their favorite songs were. So we started creating products that taught people how to play all the classics, and it was very successful. So I think, really immersing yourself in the market. There's a lot of things you can do even online, reading Amazon reviews. I like reading Reddit groups. One of the things I was taught was go to the magazine stand, buy every magazine on a topic, read them all, scan through all of them, look for the patterns, look for what's hot, look for what's trending. So there's no shortcut, but once you kind of load your brain up with all this information, you start to really tune into the market, that's when you can serve them. But the biggest edge is to be the market. And that's what I've done the majority of the time. So like I've been playing guitar since I'm 12. I'm obsessed with biological optimization. I'm obsessed with brain performance. So it's not very difficult for me to go and put myself in their shoes, because I am in the shoes.
Yeah.
I'm wearing the shoes every day. But yeah, there's no shortcutting kind of immersing yourself in the market.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. I mean, I love the way you broke that down, actually, because it's really, really important. It's just the basics of communication. You, as a company, invest a lot of money into podcasting, and I've been doing this for 10 years. And before that, people didn't really know what a podcast was. I've been trying to convince people that this is a great idea for their business, not only because it produces content, but because it is like probably the best business development tool that I've ever seen. Let's talk about how y'all see podcasting and what kind of results have you gotten as a result of being in the podcast world.
Yes, what's been interesting the last few years is seeing media diverge. Is diverge into micro attention spans. Now we're down to TikTok, which is mostly sub-second, right? You're seeing something, you're deciding whether or not you want to watch that, flip up, flip up, flip up. And then on the other side, we've got 3-hour podcast with Joe Rogan. I've built marketing analytics platforms, and here's the big insight. The longer the content is, the better the ROI. And we've tracked that across every top media channel from TikTok to podcasts, and nothing beats podcasts. Nothing, the value of a click that comes from a podcast, nothing's close. Now, why is that? I think one, people have an attention span. They're smarter. They make more money. So it's just a better group of people. It's a better buyer. It's a better customer. And that's why we focused on that. And I remember the first year we ran some podcast ads, I was analyzing the metrics. I'm like, whoa, the return on ad spend here is a little obscene. Can we drive more of that? And we've just been ramping up ever since. So yeah, we're spending millions a year profitably on podcasts. We run podcast ads. Sometimes we'll sponsor episodes. Sometimes we'll show up as a free guest, but we do all of it, and it's all worth it. I think you cannot beat the salesmanship and the education that happens with a 30, 60-minute, 3-hour conversation. As good as a YouTube ad is or a Facebook ad is, it pales in comparison to the level of depth that we can get into these conversations. So yeah, huge fan of podcast ads.
Yeah. I mean, we've been telling stories since the beginning of time, right? And parents sing to their kids before they're even born. This power of voice is absolutely insane. And you made a really good point there, Matt. Like, you cannot compare a click on a Facebook ad or a TikTok video to someone that has just consumed even an hour of listening to your voice. You have a podcast, and you have the Awesome Health podcast. When you're thinking now, I heard that you're going to restart a podcast. What are your goals, and what is the mission, and what are you trying to achieve as a result of starting your own platform here?
Yeah, first of all, I'm glad there's people like you teaching people how to do a podcast. Let's be clear, it's hard. Right? First mover's advantage is gone. When Joe Rogan started, there wasn't a lot of people, and he was able to build momentum. And that's a great question. If Joe Rogan started today, would he be successful in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? I don't know. Good question. I don't
Yeah.
have the answer. Just wouldn't know that. But I don't think he'd be anywhere near as successful as he is. So if you're a new podcast starting out, I think that you're either an incredibly interesting person, you have incredibly interesting guests, or you have an incredibly interesting format. Those are the three things you have to focus on. Now, I will say, I think it's very difficult to compete with just the guest level, right? Let's take a look at Tim Ferriss's or our friend Jordan Harbinger. I mean,
Yep.
the caliber of guests that they're getting is difficult to beat, right? So I think that you can dig deeper and find some really interesting experts, but I think show format is probably the biggest thing that people are not focusing on enough. You know, if you watch television, any sort of television, whether it's Netflix or, you know, classic cable TV, what makes the shows is the formats, you know, things like Survivor or Apprentice or whatever the show is. They've built an interesting format. And in my opinion, when it comes to podcasts, I think that people haven't really pushed the boundaries on the creative side of interesting podcast formats. And I think that's a good opportunity to do that. Or you're just a really cool person like yourself that people enjoy listening to. And I will say, I think one of the biggest competitive advantages, and I've worked with a lot of YouTubers, guys that have gotten to millions of subscribers, and we tested dozens of people in guitar control. You know, we got our channel to 6 figures on YouTube. Here's the great news. The great news is the number one X factor, in my opinion, is your level of consciousness. And I know that sounds nebulous, but if you read Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, and we're talking about the power of voice, it's not just a power of voice, it's the consciousness, the energy, the frequency, whatever you want to call it, that's getting communicated and broadcasted through your voice that people feel. And if that frequency makes them feel good, they will tune in again. So if you look at your level of consciousness as a product that you're selling, because that product is making them feel a positive emotion, a positive feeling that they want to feel over and over again, you will be successful.
Yeah. I'm first of all, I'm so glad he brought David Hawkins into this conversation. I love Power versus Force. I love his new stuff as well. And I think that just understanding the different levels of power and force is just such a huge change in perspective. And I don't disagree with you at all in terms of the consciousness. I feel like any business owner, entrepreneurs that start their business and kind of want to change and grow, it's first growing themselves to help the business grow is probably the way to see it. You mentioned how engaging podcasts are and the format of the show. And I feel what tends to happen is when people start, well, the best thing about a podcast is that it's easy to do. The worst thing about a podcast is that it's easy to do. So people kind of create this amalgamation of what they listen to. So if they listen to Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss and those kind of people, they're like, oh, I'm going to create this long ass show and just interview people, but don't have interview skills, right? And I'm not saying that they will definitely learn interview skills over time because you do enough of these and you kind of get your interview skills. So I think that the creation of podcasts, to your point, is not being pushed because when people are starting their podcast, they're like, oh, how difficult can it be? Let me just start mine because I love these podcasts, and they land up creating this amalgamation of what they currently listen to as opposed to creating something that they want to create because they feel like they need to create this stuff. Do you see that as well? And do you see a difference in ad spend depending on the podcast that you spend on?
So we track, I mean, again, what we do typically start off with a smaller deal, 4 or 8 ads. We track the return on ad spend, and if it works, we'll ramp up the deal. And I will say this, and this is a really important point for anybody who's got a podcast. Here's the magic formula for us as an advertiser. A, you get us on the show. We'll do a free episode, and then we start buying ads. And that combination of showing up and building a relationship with the audience makes the advertisement far more effective than if you just start running ads without that first contact, without that first relationship.
Of course.
So that's a really, really important thing that I think a lot of companies don't do enough. They'll just
Yeah.
run ads and not go on the show. Um, Here's a concept that I think you're going to start seeing more, and that's really short podcasts. I'm talking anywhere from 60 seconds to 3 minutes to 5 minutes to 15 minutes. I'm always trying to track human nature and trends, and obviously the trend to really short content is hot. I'm wondering what's next. What's after TikTok? Are we down to subliminal messaging where you don't even see what's going on?
Yeah.
Uh, but with podcasts, I think that I'm looking at my own behavior. For an example, I'm not listening to as many podcasts as I used to. Why? Because I'm busy.
Mm.
I don't have a lot of time. I'll really cherry pick the best episodes with the guests that I'm really excited about, and I might do 1 or 2 of those a week. With that being said, do I have 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes as I'm walking to the gym or walking home or doing something in the house? I do. So, yeah, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more kind of really bite-sized podcast formats where somebody just shares a really valuable tactic or a really valuable strategy. And yeah, that's probably one of the things we're going to do with Mr. Newts is mind bullets or something. So.
Is that?
Yeah, actually, that bite size. What you just said was so perfect, right? So the sorting engine that we end up default using is, what's the activity I'm about to do? Am I going to take a bike ride? Am I going to go run sprints? Am I going to go? Do I have an activity I'm just going to? And I need a voice in my head that is the right tone and the right motivation or the right languaging, so that when I get into that, whatever I'm going to, that event, I'm going to be able to kind of to pull those with me and take them into that thing. Or is there some bit of content that I sorely need some information on to bring into that meeting or to that conversation? And from there, you start to kind of sort. That's the new sort engine, right? It used to be topical. Well, topical is still there, but within the context of topical, you've got the length of content based on activities that you're doing,
Yeah.
and what you can complete.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a huge distinction, because I think that podcasting has evolved quite a lot since I started, and now with COVID and with the new platforms that have come into play, and with like there was a time that people did not know what a podcast was at all, and now I don't have to explain to anyone what a podcast is, which is crazy, because I was at a business dinner yesterday, and there were like 12 people around the table. They were all older gentlemen, like, who literally have been in business for a long time in around Brisbane. And I went around the table and I had to introduce myself. So I kind of went, I didn't know whether, to go with the podcast word, but I said, I make podcasts for some of the most famous people in the world, actors, politicians. And everyone got it. And I was really surprised, because usually I would have to explain what a podcast is, why is it different from radio, how to subscribe, where to go to get it, who's got the podcast. And I didn't have to do that at all. And you're kind of tapping onto this trend, which I believe is going to, explode in terms of audio and podcasting and the platform. Let's talk about what you're trying to create, Mr. Newts. Like, you're trying to go down. You have so much experience in the podcasting world. You've had so much experience in brain enhancing world. How are you bringing that together?
Well, a couple things. One is I want to go back for just a second and talk about the power of connection. And I just got back from Austin, and I spent a week on the road doing literally back-to-back podcasts, and it was fantastic. What I got out of I got a lot of stuff out of that. One is I built indomitable relationships. These are some of these people will be both friends forever and cohorts in all kinds of activities that are valuable, both to both the company and myself individually, and to them. It's just really incredible. It got into almost a curation type of environment where I was there sitting with Luke Story, telling stories, right? Telling narratives.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing connection, like you would have like when Matt and I met for the first time. We were going to have a 1 hour podcast or a 1 hour phone call. 5 hours later, we're hanging up, and it was that same kind of thing where you suddenly find these like souls that are sitting out there waiting for you to show up, and that kind of connection is very difficult to find in real life. One of the things about podcasters and business people is we have these common threads that are running through us. One is, what do I need to do to get to the next level? And that of course is physiological and neurological and from a business perspective. And the other is, what are the stories that have made you who you are today? And those pieces combined with, I've probably written 1,000 plus sound bites that have been bits and pieces of revelation that have come along in the creation of these products and in insights that customers and business partners and folks have given me, that I think are really valuable to share. Yeah. So the framework for what we're going to do will be, here's how you can optimize your states. Here are the available states that you can go to, and kind of the amalgams of states that you can create. And then we really want to help people move from sick to superhuman in whatever facet or aspect of their life that they're unperforming or underperforming, and how to scale that up to the super performing, right? Going into superhuman land as needed.
Yeah.
So the context of our piece will be around those things. But at the core of it, I'm always a business guy. I have a big heart for people that have both made it and have struggled. I get to tell the story of, this is my second Inc. 500 company. And both times I hacked it. The first time my company was acquired 11 months into the founding of the company, and they had been in business long enough for me to qualify as Inc. 500. We were the 387th fastest growing company in 1986 or 87.
Wow.
And then here we are again in 2022. And thank God for Matt, Wade, Andy, and their team to come along. And through that, we were able to beat the Inc. 500 because Bioptimizers has been in business long enough for us to qualify. So it's really, really fun.
Well, I first of all, huge congratulations, because that's not a small feat to accomplish.
It's that guy.
That guy, yeah. Huge, sometimes when someone introduces me, I kind of listen to the introduction and go, oh, that guy sounds amazing. And when they say my name, I'm like, oh, it's just me. So I just really want to, I don't know whether it's landed for the two of you, what you've accomplished in the short amount of time. And again, what kind of results your customers are getting. To give you perspective, you mentioned sick to superhuman. I haven't been sick in 5 years. I did get COVID for 15 hours, and that was it. But no flu, no sickness in a long, long time. And then to tack this onto that is I literally have an upbeat in my hand right now, kind of going, okay, when do I take this next? And it is, I have not come across a product that I want to endorse irrespective of how the whole thing goes, because I'm going to take it. I'm going to continuously be a member, a customer, a client. I'm looking forward to my next batch. I feel really weird if I'm running out of it, that I want to order it before I run out of it, because what if there's a day that I don't have it? And I feel that it has changed a lot of things in my life, and I'm not even sure whether I should give it all the credit or whether something else is happening on the planet, but it has changed me. I want to ask you both, when someone's consuming this, when they're doing it live or recording or whatever, how can they find more of your work, and where do they go to take the next steps?
They go to newtopia.com/Ronsley, and there's a promo code Ronsley10. By the way, I just want to say that we're really big on education. So when people get the product, we have a book It's about I think an 80-page plus book called The Brilliant Mind Blueprint that educates people not just on the nootropics, but really how to optimize your brain on a daily basis. We also have an app that guides people on a daily basis. So we want to really make it educational, effortless. Just basically follow the process, and the results will pay off. One last comment too: it's not just when you take nootropics, you're activating different hubs in the brain. You're creating something called neurogenesis. You're permanently leveling up your brain. Your brain is upgrading itself as you're activating these states. And what's really cool is even if you don't do a nootropic one day, you don't lose that upgrade. So yeah, it's awesome. So nootopia.com, nootopia.com/Ronsley, and promo code is Ronsley10. Mark, any final words on how to go to the next level, how to hit the Zamner zone?
The Zamner zone. For those of you that haven't done this yet, you will be. This is Zamner juice. Yes. That's another adjunct to great conversational fun.
Yeah.
Is 4 to 8 squirts of that and get on that mic, man. Hit that mic.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. I'm 60 years old.
Can't tell.
Okay. And thank you.
Yeah.
And there was when I was down in Austin, they did a full test, a Russian instrument to test aging, and it came out with I'm 32 years below my record age, right? So I'm running at 28 now.
Crazy.
So, but it's a byproduct of I've been doing these things now consistently for going on 16 years, from the 4 years of hardcore concentration on the way to building Nectar X to all of the progress since and all of the new developments that we've done since. And it has been if I was to say one thing, right? What's the one thing? This is the one thing that has made the most monumental contribution to my life outside of people like Matt coming into it. It is something that's been reliable. It's given me the opportunity and the possibility to be able to do an attack angle on whatever happens to be the thing that I'm trying to do. And it's given me this kind of like edge, that thing where you go, yeah, I can rock this thing, whether it's doing a hand of poker or which actually Matt is a master at as well, or it's coming up with the next great formulation. It's those epiphanies that come because your brain is actually working at a rate that it's never been able to operate before in a non-destructive manner. So,
yeah, well, when Matt was explaining to me what Biooptimizers was, and he was like, imagine you're 100% and we can beat that and you'll have that forever. And I'm like, what? No. I mean, I can't even imagine what that looks like. And then I started to do it, and it's changed a lot of things. I don't even know what my 100% is anymore because I keep beating it. I literally keep beating it. And I'm a huge fan of Biooptimizers, of Nootopia, of you both, and everything you do. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for all the work you're going to do to make this even better. I can't even imagine what that would look like. So thank you for everything.
Thanks for
appreciate
having
your
us.
generosity, Ron.
Awesome conversation.